Hello guys, welcome to a new video on Tower of God New World, and in this video I'm going to do the character review for 003. I'm going to talk about how good this unit is, and then we're going to go over the skills, revolution, exclusive equipment, gear, ignition weapon, rapport, and some team recommendations. I will start immediately by talking about how good this unit is, and I will say that 003 is an excellent support, but she has a few restrictions. The first one is that she has to work or be played with a DPS unit that is of the red element, and it would be best if you play her with mostly red units, like let's say at the very least 4 out of 5 units in the team should be red if you really want to optimize your kit. The second thing that would make you optimize your kit the most would be to pair her with an highest attack unit, or aka your DPS, that deals mostly single target damage instead of AoE attacks. She still works great with a AoE damage dealer, but definitely her kit is more built to support single target DPS units. And the last restriction is that you want to play her with a unit that deals high damage with few hits. If it's a unit that deals a lot of ticks of damage, that's not going to work that great with 003, and we're going to see why while we read the passive. But these are more or less the restrictions that this unit has. She's still a super valid option. I would say not a mandatory one. There is no DPS where she really is a must pick. The best DPS that can make the most use out of her is Alice at the moment, and Alice is not an exceptional DPS right now, so not much we can say. Maybe in the future we will have some high damage hits, single target red DPS, but we don't know for now. So yeah, that's pretty much it for how good this unit is. I will also briefly talk about the dupe level that you need, how many dupes she needs, and I will say she'd be fine at 3 red, though you would be losing out on the Revolution 5 effect, but at 3 red she would already be quite decent. The issue is that she doesn't survive for long. All the times I used her, she always died at 3 red. And with Rainbow 5, what she gets is that she can cast the special move earlier, and while she's in the special move, she doesn't drop below 1 HP, which is really good for survivability, and that helps a ton. So I would say if you really want to use her, Rainbow 5 is where it's at. And unfortunately, as for most units, if you don't have her, like if you don't have the unit Rainbow 5, they're not going to do well. And since they released the Revolution, I think that's more of the direction that the game is taking. Every single unit will have some important part of her kit like hidden behind the Revolution. So not much we can do. I can tell you she works at 3 red, and she does, but definitely you will feel the difference without Revolution 5 and without the early ult. So yeah, not much we can do about it. I would say we can go over the skills now, and we can start with the passive. This is the core of her kit. She has an interesting targeting. She always targets the enemy that your highest attack unit is targeting, so that's important. And whenever she hits an enemy with whichever attack you want, be it a basic attack, the special move, or a skill, the enemy is going to become distracted, decreasing their defense by 50%. And when another ally attacks a distracted enemy, the target will take damage with their red element resistance decreased by 50%, and then the distracted state will be removed. Now, this is why I mentioned that she works best with units that don't deal multi-hits, but instead have high damage with a single hit. Because if you have, for example, Evan Kell that deals like 4 ticks, let's say, this defense shred would be applied to the first hit, and then if, let's say 003 is not attacking by the time the second hit lands, the second tick lands, then that second tick won't have the 50% defense shred and the 50% red element resistance decrease. And like Viol is in a similar situation. I would say that right now the best DPS units that you can pair 003 with are Jinsung and Alice. And Alice is the best one. And we also need to keep in mind that anyone can proc this effect. So let's say your DPS unit is charging up the shot, and then a support for some reason is attacking the same target, and they remove the distracted effect, then your DPS is not going to benefit from the defense red and the red element resistance decrease, which is pretty meh, not that great. Fortunately, she has multi-hits on the special move that can apply quickly this passive, so it's not the end of the world. And also the one of the two active skills deals a lot of ticks, so it's still fine, but you have to keep in mind that it's best if your DPS is targeting a specific kind of enemy. Like, for example, Alice always targets the enemy that's furthest away, and the rest of your team is unlikely to be attacking that target, which means that 003 is going to attack that target as well because of the first condition of the passive, that is, she's always attacking the same unit as your highest attack ally. And then only Alice, for the most part, is going to benefit from the passive, which is what you want. So yeah, probably a way too long explanation for this passive, but I hope that now is a bit clearer how this actually works. Then we have the Revolution 5 effect, and each time an enemy is distracted with this passive, all red element allies attack is going to be increased by 20% with a max of 10 stacks for up to 200% attack. This is pretty good. Not much we can say about that. Then we have the first active skill, Check. She's going to fire a special round, increasing swiftness by 50 and lifesteal by 50% of the ally with the highest attack and herself for 15 seconds. An okay buff, and if I remember correctly, the exclusive achievement is also giving an additional effect here. So it's okay. The lifesteal could have been replaced by something else, but it's fine. It's okay. Then we have Desperado, the active skill that I was mentioning before. She deals a sort of AoE attack with some missiles that are going to hit enemies in range 5 times and stun them for 3 seconds. And the enemy hit by the first explosion as their defense decreased by 40% for 10 seconds, max 2 stacks. And yeah, as I mentioned before, this is a 5 hits attack, which is going to proc the passive 5 times if it's removed in the meantime, obviously. And then we have for Revolution 4 another missile barrage occurs when Desperado skill ends. Just fine, it's going to repeat it again. If I remember correctly, I didn't really check too much exactly how this works, but it should be repeating the whole barrage again, which then gets the defense red to the 2 stacks. So yeah, pretty solid active skill, really good at applying the passive, and a nice defense red on top, so not much we can complain about. Then we have the special move, Endgame. This is nothing crazy, this is here only to provide 20 hits to all enemies in a straight line, and then the immunity to such effects and the sort of invincibility effect, the fact that you cannot drop below 1 HP. Really good for survivability and for applying the passive again, so really good. Now I would say we can move on to the exclusive achievement, and here there is not much to say. Lifesteal is a pretty trash additional effect to have, especially because she already gains like 50% from the active skill, but whatever. Level 1 is going to give her 70% of her max HP when endgame skill ends, so this special move. You're likely going to be at like 1 HP, maybe a bit more because you're recovering HP in the meantime, but then when it ends, you're going to get 70% max HP back, which is going to help surviving until the next special move. Then we have level 2. The Kingmaker skill is enhanced, increasing also the attack coefficient by 100% when allies attack distracted enemies. Pretty solid. Then we have level 3. She's going to recover 30 energy according to the number of hits landed with the Desperado skill, which with Revolution 4 is increased, so it's even more energy. Really good. For level 4, we have the improvement on the check skill, that is the one that gives the swiftness and lifesteal. And now is also going to restore 40% of her max HP when HP falls to 40% or less while the special rounds are active. Only one time per special round. Pretty good effect as well. Some additional survivability. And now I would say we can have a quick look at the gear. There is not much to say here. I would say just slot 4 is what you need to get to the additional resistances, and everything else is not that important from my point of view. Always make sure to have enough accuracy, but if you do, you don't even need to level slot 1 and slot 3. If you don't, obviously go for them. For crit damage and crit rate, I wouldn't bother. It's just a waste of coins, and it's not worth it. Then if we go over the ignition weapon, I'm using Rafflesia. I don't think there is a real best in slot for her. You can use whatever you want. You can use Runda, you can use Doris, you can use Sela, you can use Rafflesia. Just use a supportive set and that will be fine. Nothing else we can say about it. The downside of Rafflesia is that while she's in the special move, she's not recovering energy because she's immune to status effects, so Rafflesia doesn't proc. But while she's outside of it, Rafflesia kind of helps in making it so she gets to casting a special move at least. So I like it. Probably not the best in slot, but still super solid. And yeah, the last point would be Rapport, but you know the drill. I mean, Rapport nowadays is pretty free, so bare minimum is level 4, but you might as well just go level 6 on every single unit, especially if you plan on using them. And yeah, not much we can say there. Then for team recommendations, I will say, let me open, maybe let's go in arena simulation for this one. Let's just say we will mostly want to play with like mono red teams, as I mentioned. You can get away with using like 4 out of 5 red units. It's not a big deal, especially if you pair her with Alice, because as I mentioned, she has a peculiar targeting and not many of your other units will be targeting the farthest away enemy. So even if you have 3 non-red units, you're still going to use the red element resistance decrease for the most part, because these 2 will be the only units targeting the enemy that's like in this spot. So that's good. So Alice is most likely the best DPS. The other one that I could recommend would be Jinsung, because he's mostly single target and he has a strong single hit with his special move. While other units, like for example Ejin, he has multi-hits in his special move, so you don't really benefit from the defense shred on all of them, which is not optimal. Evankel, especially an high swiftness Evankel, is not going to be optimal either, because you're not going to benefit from the passive on a lot of hits. So yeah. And Bam or Viol, he also doesn't really benefit too much because his basic attack is multi-hit. His bang skill is multi-hit, so not the best pair either. So yeah, I would say if you want to use 003, not only she's restricted to mostly red element units, but also to single target ones. So again, Jinsung and Alice are your best teammates. So you can already see super niche unit, which is also why I'm still not sure if I want to give her an S that you see here in the ranking. I will probably move it down to A+, just because of how niche she is. She will work with these 2 units, and that's more or less it. Then you kind of want to build the team, but not around 003, but around the DPS unit that you are going to pick. So if you're going to pick a unit like Jinsung, then you definitely want someone that can help in spamming the special move, as usual, like a Mamanak, if she can survive, but that's another problem. Albelda would always be a pretty solid pick. We could even go with, for example, Red Masquarian, something like this. I wouldn't say this is a crazy good team, but it's okay. If you were to go for someone like Alice, it's also fine, a similar team, it's okay. Though Albelda is not the best unit to pair Alice with because she has an annoying active skill and you don't want them to be reset. If your Albelda is not Revolution 5, then that's not a problem. But if your like Albelda is Revolution 5, then that's a bit of a weird synergy, let's say. She also doesn't need too much attack, so you can just ignore it a bit and go for somebody else. You could decide to go for a yellowy, which would help increasing your crit rate, which is pretty important to have at least 100%. So if you're not running slot 5, like crit rate, yellowy would be a pretty solid pair. Again, I don't know why it's becoming a Alice video, but just keep in mind that after you pick your main DPS unit, you then have to build the team around them and not around 003. So for team recommendations, I will just tell you the 2 DPS units that you can pair with. And those are these 2 guys. Not much else. I didn't mention the red SSR DPS, which would be a Raptor, because he also has a multi-hit in the special move. His basic attacks are not multi-hit, so that would be fine. And his attack speed is also not that quick. So you can pair with him. It's not going to be too bad. Probably after these 2 guys, he's the best user of 003, but whatever. Just keep in mind, you either want to go for a Jinsung team or an Alice team with 003. And yeah, that's pretty much all. Let me know if this video was useful. I think it was a bit quicker than usual, and I think I like it this way. I will try to keep it as short as possible while providing as much information as I can. And yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!